Sometimes we wonder how we're going to make it. But he holds our hand. The Lord is good. He's worthy. Of our praise. Somebody here right now. You're saying, Pastor, I don't know how I'm going to get through Monday. But I want you to know he'll hold your hand. He'll make the crooked way straight. He can make a way out of no way. I'm trying to preach. From the book of Genesis. Story of Joseph. From the book of Genesis. Chapter 41 and verse 39. Hear now these words. The book of Genesis, chapter 41 and verse 39. And then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has made all this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Yes, sir. And then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He made him ride in a chariot as his second in command, and men shouted before him, make way. Thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. And then Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, but without your word no one will lift hand or foot in all of Egypt. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading of his word. Amen. I want to talk. I actually gave this two titles. One, from prison to the palace. And the other, look what God did. Look what God did. Today we see a man named Joseph. Joseph was in prison. You remember the story. He was in prison, although he had broken no law. He was in prison for trying to do the right thing. That is, he tried to honor God with all of his life. But he was in prison because of Sister Potiphar, who saw this young 30-year-old man, and she found him irresistible. And so she made advances toward him. And when he refused the advances, she went to Brother Potiphar and had accused this young man falsely of rape. And so Joseph was thrown in jail for a crime that he did not commit. But even while dealing with the hardship, he continued to praise the Lord. Now let me stop a footnote right there. In the midst of a hardship, he continued to praise the Lord. I'll say it again. In the midst of a hardship, when things did not go his way, he continued to praise the Lord. And so here he is now in prison. But then he has another problem all while being in prison. he's hanging around some forgetful folk. He is called one night to interpret a dream. And this was Pharaoh's chief butler. And so Joseph interprets the man's dream. And the man said that when I get out, I'm going to tell Pharaoh what you did. And so brother man is just waiting and waiting and waiting. In fact, he waited for 2 years after the man was blessed and released. I don't know about you, but I've been around some forgetful folk. Amen. How many of you had somebody to say, "Would you loan me some money on Monday and I'll get back with you on payday"? But payday came and they forgot. Help me somebody. How many of you helped somebody out and not that you helped them out expecting anything, but when their blessing came, they forgot. And so Joseph is not only in jail for a crime that he did not commit, he's been hanging around some forgetful folk. Our text today is about a man that was delivered from prison to the palace. When you look back over your journey, you ought to have a Joseph story and a Joseph testimony. Because we can sit in church today with all of our finery on, but unless somebody is willing to stand and say, "Look what the Lord has done for me. Look where the Lord has brought me from." Somebody here can say, "Pastor, he's brought me from a mighty long way." There's Joseph in prison. But then finally, the man remembers the dream. Finally, he remembers this guy named Joseph that is in jail, and the Pharaoh said, "I had a dream last night. Yes, sir. And I could not get anyone to interpret the dream." Now listen as we walk through this. He had a slew of wise men. And the wise man could not interpret the dream. In other words, it's good to have an education, but you must understand that an education will not unlock everything for you. That you need to have God on your side. You need to know that the Lord is still on the main line in the midst of scholarship. And so he had all of these folk, his wise men, and the Bible says that none of them could interpret the dream. Yes. So here was a brother named Joseph. And Joseph comes, a slave that had been sold by his brothers into slavery. He had been a slave for Potiphar. He had been falsely accused. But look at God at work behind the scenes. I don't know about your life, but in my life, I've seen and witnessed God working behind the scenes. Amen. I've seen folk that didn't like me, and the Lord would use them to bless you because he can work behind the scenes. I've seen him open doors that no man can shut. And then I've seen him turn around when the enemies got too close, shut a door that they can't open. He can work behind the scenes. I've seen him provide when I didn't know how the provision was coming because he can work behind the scenes. Let me put this in another way. In 1981, I went off to college at Union University in Jackson, Tennessee. And at that time, my mother had been diagnosed with colon cancer. And Daddy had told me that, boy, we really don't have any money to send you off to school. And so there I was at Jackson, Tennessee, at Union University, showing up to the financial aid office. Let me tell you, I'm going to confess now. I'm going to tell you what I had. I had a 1977 Plymouth Valari that was rusted out. I bought it from Commonwealth Edison. some Jensen speakers because I had to get my bump on. You know what I'm talking about. And I got me some Krager rims. I had to have some bling bling on the car. All of it was rusted out with 160, but I had to look halfway cool. Got down, left Chicago, on my way to Jackson, Tennessee. $500 was all I had in my pocket. Mama was sick. Showed up to Union University and walked into the financial aid office. The financial aid director was a man by the name of Mr. Don Morris. Told him my situation. And he said, well, at this point, we don't have any money for you. That was a lady that I met walking out of the office and literally thinking that I'm headed back to Chicago. Mrs. Winger from Milan, Tennessee, said, boy, you look pretty down. I explained to her my story, and she said, wait a minute. I'm going to talk to Don myself. I said, Mr. Morris? She said, no, Don. I'm going to talk to Don myself. God started to work behind the scene. Sister Mingo got through talking. I don't know what she told Don or what language or what kind of hieroglyphics she used. But when I got through, Don called me back. And whatever books he was looking at that he couldn't find money at first, on the second trip, he found money for me to go to school. I'm here to tell you that God can work behind the scenes. God is working behind the scenes. So here's a prisoner that was falsely accused of rape, sold by his brothers, but now he's up in the palace. Called from the prison to the palace. And Pharaoh said, I had a dream last night. And all of these folk that I've sent to Harvard and Yale and Dartmouth cannot interpret this dream. All of these folk that graduated from the University of Chicago cannot interpret the dream, but I gotta go down to the prison. Gotta go down to the prison. Now let me drop this thing in. Don't ever look down on your situation. Don't ever look down on your circumstance. Yeah, I know we don't do it here, but let me tell you about them folk in Ohio. Some of us, when we get blessed, we get a little ashamed to say that I was from the country. Yeah. I know y'all don't do that here. We're talking about Ohio for a minute. Some of us, when we get blessed, we're a little ashamed to say that I spent some time at Robert Hill, Cabrini Green, and Ida B. Wells. And some of us, when we move to the suburbs, and we're wearing good clothes, we get tired, and we don't want folk to know that I used to wear some hand-me-downs. Some of us used to get a little sophisticated. I know you don't do it here, but that's what happened in Ohio. That they would get blessed, and they want you to believe that they always been wearing Michael Kors. Always been shopping at Polo. Always been wearing Tommy Hilfiger. Always been driving a Lexus. Always got a little money in your pocket. But every now and then, you need to know that God may have brought you from the prison and moved you to the palace. And when you come into the house of the Lord, not be ashamed to say that He's brought me a mighty long way. So he gets this brother from the prison. He gets this brother from the hood. He gets this brother who may have been in gangs. He gets this brother who may have either sold drugs or used drugs. He gets this brother who may have children out of wedlock. He gets this brother who may have had all kinds of issues. But you know, the question is not where you've been. The question is where God can take you. And so here's Joseph in the palace. In the palace. I'll say it again. In the palace. Just yesterday they were giving him food, sliding it under the door. But now he's in the palace. And Pharaoh is surrounded by a well-educated cabinet. But the cabinet can't help him. And so he turns to Joseph. And Joseph says that the Lord will interpret this dream. And so the Lord gives Joseph wisdom to interpret this dream. Listen to the story. Not only does he interpret the dream, but then he says to Pharaoh, I've given you the interpretation. And why don't you now find somebody that can carry out what I just told you? Yes. Listen, think about this. Of all the folk that were around Pharaoh, well-to-do, silk stocking and starched shirt folk, that were well-to-do, you would have thought that somebody, Pharaoh could have said, I want to pick this brother. And not only could they not interpret the dream, but Pharaoh didn't even have confidence in them to fulfill the dream after being interpreted. Look at God working behind the scenes. And so now he says to Joseph, Joseph, I am giving the job to you. And we get down to verse 39, and we get down to this passage, and Joseph, he says to Joseph, you will be my number 2 man. You will be Joseph. You will be the one that will lead Egypt. You will be the one that when you walk through the city, that folks will bow at your walking. They will listen to your decrees. They will obey your orders. And you have to pause and say, but wait a minute, preacher. Wasn't he in jail just yesterday? Now all of a sudden, soul brother number 5 is running the whole nation. I want somebody to say today, look what God can do. Regardless of what your situation might be this morning, the story of Joseph is a story for all of us. God can take you from nothing and put a table before you in the presence of your enemies. God can make a way out of nowhere. God can provide. God can open doors. God is God all by himself. Here's the story. You say, but Pastor, why did God have to leave him in jail so long? I wish I had an answer for that. But what I've learned from reading scripture and what I've learned from Amanda Riley, that 99-year-old theologian in my family that I call my grandmama, what I learned from her is that God may not show up when you want him to, but he's always on time. Let's check the record to make sure. When did he show up for the disciples? When they were in the storm. When did he show up at Lazarus' tomb? The man was already dead. But he said, death don't bother me. When did he show up at Calvary? When he said, all power is in my hand. When did
Jesus Christ come into your soul, you might say, Pastor, I messed some things up. I did some things that I should not have done. But when Jesus showed up, he picked somebody up and turned you around and placed your feet on solid ground. He'll show up and he'll be on time. And then finally, look at what happened. When you read that 41st verse, it's a powerful verse because it says, and Pharaoh was so impressed with Joseph. Listen to what he did. He took the ring off of his finger and he placed that ring on Joseph's finger. And I tell you what gets me to shouting is that, and he put on a new robe. Now you got to understand that he had a robe or a coat of many colors. And his brothers got upset with him when he wore that robe or that coat. And he only had that robe or that coat for a little bit of time. But when God gives you a robe, when God provides, he wore that second robe for 80 years. Then not only did he give him a ring, not only did he give him a robe, but he gave him a position. And when God elevates you, David says, I'm still eating while my enemies are standing around the table. How do you know that when God elevates you, when God promotes you, when God is for you, he's more than the whole world against you. This brother was in prison and now he's in the palace. Now he's not just cleaning up in the palace. He's not just there for a little meal in the palace. He is running the palace. He's running the show. Now maybe you showed up here today and the devil wants to beat you up over your past. The devil wants to beat you up over where you've been and the things that you've done. I challenge you today to turn it over to Jesus. Help me somebody. I challenge you today to say, baby, you got to get behind me, Satan. Because God has given me a new life. God has given me a new opportunity. God has given me new courage and new enthusiasm. And I know that he can take me from the prison to the palace. And if the truth be told, I know we're in church. If the truth be told, all of us are not that hot anyhow. If the truth be told, if walls could talk, if mosquitoes could talk, if flies could talk, we've got a whole lot of repenting to do anyhow. No need of looking at what your neighbor did. No need of gossiping about what somebody else did. If the truth be told, all of us, the Bible says, come here, scripture, the Bible says all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But I serve a risen Savior that'll do for you what he did for Joseph. He'll take you out of prison and he'll bless you. He'll bless you so much until you'll say, look what God has done. He's brought me from a mighty long way. Hey, he's made a way out of no way. He's all right. He's all right. Yes, he is. That's the story of Joseph. That's my story. That's my story. Growing up in Harvey, Illinois, at a time when our community was drug infested, Phoenix area drug infested, going to a high school, drug infested, gang infested, but I'm a witness that he can take you out of poverty. I'm a witness that he'll protect you. I'm a witness that he'll open doors for you. I'm a witness that he'll make a way for you. Too bad I'm the only witness here today. Too bad I'm the only witness. Too bad sitting here calm and collected. If Joseph was in church today, knowing that he'd been in prison, and now he's the ruler of Egypt, do you think he'd be suave, God? Amen, Reverend. Hurry up and finish. I believe that Joseph would stand on his feet and say, look what the Lord has done. He's brought me. Has he brought you from a mighty long way? Has he blessed you? Has he provided for you? Let the church say amen. Over your journey, you might say, he's brought me from my own prison. He's brought me from my own poverty. He's brought me when I didn't know how I was going to make it. He's protected me during a bad economy. He's kept me. You're Joseph. I'm Joseph. And the Joseph of Scripture would say, Lord, I got to thank you today. I've got to thank you today. Don't you let that devil fool you. Don't you let the devil trick you about your past. Don't you let him get you upset about all that. You need to know that where I've been is not where I'm going. Lord is in this thing. Joseph is our student. Doors of the church open for you right now. Our deacons and our clergy are coming.